Well, thank you very much for coming tonight. Tonight we're going to talk about medications, actually detoxing. Now the tough part is why. I mean, if you have, how many people have health insurance or health care in here? No, you don't. I'm sorry, no, seriously, when you think about it, it's disease management. When you go up to the doctor, do they ask you how you're digesting or processing nutrients? Do they give you things that are going to increase your metabolism or help your health? Do they have a way to measure your health? No, they don't. They don't. And what's even more frustrating when you look at it, I have a really good friend. She's a pharmacist. They had this cancer control conference where you can actually get medical credits or credits for continuing education. And she said she couldn't get them from there. And I said, well, wait a second, you're in healthcare. She said, no, I'm a pharmacist. We're in disease management. I know. It's like, wait a second, that doesn't make sense. So what we're going to do to understand, first off, you got to be aware that there's a problem. Okay? Now, and most people don't understand that you're being exposed to toxins most of the time. Now, we're only going to talk today about medications and vaccinations, how those can actually build up to incredible toxic levels. Next Tuesday, we're going to talk about the toxins in the food supply. Okay, so understand that you're being exposed to things that aren't exactly kosher. Number one thing, we're only going to cover blood pressure drugs. But all drugs slow or stop a metabolic process. Your body is a sea of metabolic processes. In fact, you've got to build 1 billion cells a day. That means you kill 1 billion cells a day. So your body has to build 1 billion cells and kill 1 billion cells. So this cellular process of regrowth and building the cells is essential for life. If you kill more cells than you build, you have death or disease. If you build more cells than you kill, you have health. Okay, does that make sense? So first off, let's look at blood pressure. Because this is something that most everybody, if you go into the standard care that we have today, they're going to check blood pressure. Does that make sense? Okay, so is blood pressure the same in America as it is in, say, Europe?
No.
No, it's radically different. Okay, did you know that?
No.
Did you know that blood pressure in this country you're considered to be 120/80? Well, actually, not anymore. It's now 115/75. Okay, and is that resting? Is that all the time? Is that every body type? Is that everybody? No, it's illogical. In Europe, they don't even, if it's below 180, they consider it normal. They're not even going to use blood pressure as a gauge. And in India, if your blood pressure below 140, they think it's pathology. They think it's dangerous. So first off, this is a quote out of a medical textbook. The first principle of therapy of high blood pressure or hypertension is the knowledge of when to treat and when not to. Now, I read a lot. It's hard to find common sense in medical world, but that makes sense. So first off, I want to show you how blood pressure is taken, how stupid therapies are prescribed. So first off, when you're taking blood pressure, what you got to do, now this was developed in 1905, so it's about 100 years ago, that they take and they close off the blood vessels in your arm. Okay, so they actually stop the blood pressure. They shut off the blood vessels. And then they slowly release this pressure, and they're listening. And as soon as they start to hear a little bit of blood flow, they hear that, they mark that number down. Okay, now that's supposed to be the output of the heart. They're going to call it systolic. And then they keep listening to it as they slowly release the pressure. And then when they stop hearing that sound, then they write that number down too. Okay? Now this is considered the output of the heart and the resting blood pressure of the entire body. Now this is, we're still not sure what you're actually hearing. Some people say it's turbulence, some say it's just different sounds, we're not quite sure. And you can see, now she's standing up, he's sitting down. Did you know that when you're standing up, your heart has to work a little bit harder? When you're sitting down, it doesn't have to work as hard? Did you know that when you take blood pressure, you're supposed to be sitting down for 10 minutes. You're not supposed to be diagnosed with high blood pressure unless it's taken at 3 different times of the day at 3 different occasions over a 2-week span. Did you know that? No, that's the actual medical protocol. So the protocols that most people are diagnosed with high blood pressure are inaccurate. So what they came up with, and this is frustrating, this is out of the Journal of the American Medical Association, they say that if you have some type of damage to the heart or some type of damage to your pump, that if you have higher pressure, you have lower death rates. I'm sorry, higher pressure, lower death rates. So does that mean the entire paradigm of everybody having the exact same blood pressure is foolish? Yes or yes? And I'm going to give you the answers. I'm going to make it really, really easy. And this is frustrating because they say that if you've had damage to the heart and you have pressure over 161 systolic, that's the first number, that you had lower death rates. So think of this. You got damage to a pump. Now to keep that pump alive, to keep that heart alive, do you think the heart needs oxygen? Yes or yeah? That makes sense. It makes sense to me. So now if you got damage to this, do you think it maybe requires more oxygen than something that's functioning correctly? Oh my gosh, does that make sense that maybe if you have damage to the artery or damage to the heart, that pressure may keep it alive longer? Yeah, so what we got to do, and then these are some of the drugs that they use, beta blockers, ACE inhibitors, you know, drugs, because again, in America, we're just looking at everybody being the exact same. So if your blood pressure is a little bit higher, you're given a beta blocker, ACE inhibitor, diuretic, some kind of chemical to slow the heart down. Now, if you're slowing the pump down, does that help oxygen to the body or slow it down? It slows it down. It slows it down. Now, that's interesting because when you look at it, your CM metabolic processes, okay, anything you do, any medication slows or stops a metabolic process. So if you know that if you're going to slow this or chemically tax the heart with a blood pressure drug, these medical journals, the Journal of the American Medical Association, the CDC, the World Health Organization, all of these different articles say you will have lower blood pressure, but you'll die an early death of heart disease, cancer, or diabetes. Okay, now when we talk about blood pressure, and we talk an entire hour on it, we understand how it's a foolish approach to chemically lower your blood pressure, but just know that the current state of health of our population is everybody has the same number, everybody gets this type of drug, everybody is going to get that chemical lowering, and what's the state of our health in America? Is heart disease, cancer, and diabetes rampant? 50% of our population has cancer. Has that ever happened before? No. 50% of our population has diabetes. Okay? Heart disease. Between heart disease and cancer, 5 out of 6 Americans are going to die. And none of those are genetic. Okay? You got to understand. When you talk about genetic diseases, cancer, heart disease, and diabetes are not genetic. So now we have a new method, and this is what all the healthcare professionals are moving to. We found a better way to diagnose it. So it's not blood pressure, the same number for everybody. That's foolish, that's ignorant. If you got a doctor that's checking it and actually thinks that accurate, fire him. Tell him to go back to school and learn pulse pressure. No, seriously, if he's not doing his job, you got to figure, in the old days, you would pay your doctor when you felt good. You'd stop paying him when you felt bad. So if your health isn't optimal, stop paying him, fire the guy. What they came up with now is a pulse pressure. What this is the difference between the high number and the low number. And so this makes sense. It makes sense to me. So if I'm speaking before a group, my pressure right now is probably about 140, 150, the first number. My second number is probably, I don't know, about 100, maybe 110. And that's normal under physical activity. Me and my son, we were working out at the gym, and I'm straining, my head's turning red, I'm lifting as much as I possibly can. My blood pressure's around 350. Okay, over about 250, and that's normal. When you're weightlifting and you're straining, normal blood pressure would be 400 over 200. That's normal. Okay, so blood pressure changes. It's activity dependent. What the pulse pressure is it measures the difference. So now the difference is consistent with everyone. So if you have closed arteries, you're going to require, if you need to get the same oxygen through a smaller tube, you need higher pressure. So that means you're going to have higher pressure on the output and higher pressure on the resting because you have a smaller surface area to get the same oxygen through. Does that make sense? So now it's pulse pressure. But what this does, it clues you into more, not just you have high blood pressure, need a drug. It's if it's greater, than 40 difference. So like if you have 120 over 80, that's in the ballpark, that's normal. If you have 130 over 90, that's in the ballpark, that's normal. If you have 150 over 110, that's 40, that's normal, depending on your activity. If you have heart disease, 160 over 120, again, that would be normal, okay, because see, the difference is always 40. If it's greater, it means the arteries are too hard. Okay, atherosclerosis. Now, anything that hardens the arteries, this means there's toxicity or deficiency. It means that you've had poisonous food, or the arteries aren't getting the appropriate nutrients, okay, and they're starting to get harder, or age. See, one of the things with arteries, they're unique. That they're like, have you ever heard of plaquing in the artery? Okay, have you ever heard of cholesterol deposits in the artery? Okay, well, have you ever heard of cholesterol deposits in the veins? No, it doesn't happen. So the artery is a totally different structure. In fact, the artery actually has springs in it. And the arteries close to increase the pressure and vasodilate, or open up to decrease the pressure. So the arteries are actually a living pressure regulating structure. So now if the arteries get harder because they're not getting appropriate enzymes or appropriate soluble fibers, they don't have that spring ability, so the body has to adapt to increase the pressure. Okay, so what we're doing is now the real good docs, they're measuring pulse pressure. So if the pulse pressure is greater, it means there could be fatty deposits, hardening of the arteries, could be damage to the blood vessels, iron deficiency, hyperthyroidism. So it starts to give a clue to how the body is functioning. Okay, does that make more sense? And if it's less than that, it means the heart's not working correctly. It means there's poor heart function. So it's not one drug for everybody that's going to lead to early death, heart disease, or cancer. It's actually a clue to how the body's functioning. So we can change the diet, change the nutrition, change the physiology, and then we see the outcome in the change of the test. Does that make more sense? Okay, good. Because all of these, poor heart function, it comes from deficiency or toxicity. And so I want you to clue in, if you've been diagnosed with high blood pressure, it means, or some other type of condition, it means that there's deficiency or toxicity. Now when we look at this also, blood viscosity, this is the other test. See, these tests, the pulse pressure and the blood viscosity, your doctor isn't doing right now. Why? Because he's ignorant. Okay, he really is. When you look at this, the thickness of the blood. Now let's say, how many people in here drink enough water? Okay. Both my kids raised their arm, and there's one other person. Okay, good. So 3 of us drink enough water. Okay, so now since water is the best blood thinner, what do you think that pump has to do in order to pump this thick blood through? What has to happen to pressure? There's a clue. It goes up, yes! Okay, good. See, I'm really helping you out. Okay, so when you look at this, now blood vessels only last 120 days. So now you got this big old huge red blood cell that carries oxygen. Totally cool cell. It's biconcave, and it's shaped this way so it holds a ton of oxygen. But it's got to be flexible. It's got to bend. It's got to turn. It's got to go through capillaries in order to give up its oxygen. So if the blood vessels are old, okay, they don't have that flexibility. You can't get the same oxygen. Have you ever heard of, what are they? It's the deadliest drug in America. It's really popular. The Tylenol? Yeah. Have you ever heard of that? Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, Tylenol, along with other drugs called non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, they inhibit prostaglandin production. Now the tough part with this, I know it's going to sound really stupid to you, but it takes those beautiful blood cells and glues them together. So now if you're trying to get oxygen to the capillaries, or like to the lungs to transfer oxygen, or to the capillaries to keep tissue alive, and you get these blood vessels clumped together, do you think they can hold more oxygen or less? Less. Way less. It's ridiculously stupid. What ignorant person would prescribe this stuff? Okay, it's going to destroy your joints. You won't be able to build cartilage. Your blood vessels are going to clump together, but you might have temporary pain relief. Here, try this. Oh, no, you're not going to take it? Okay, good. What's the deadliest drug in America? Heroin, cocaine, or Tylenol? Tylenol, yeah, it's like crazy. But what that does, it thickens and damages blood vessels, thickens the blood vessel wall. Now, blood vessels only last 120 days. You've got an organ back here on the left-hand side called the spleen. How many people love your spleen? Do you know what the spleen does, though? Oh, this is a trip. Okay, when you know anatomy and physiology, and I taught it for 8 years, the spleen, it's about the size of your fist. It checks every red blood cell every 20 minutes. And it checks it for size and viability. Any red blood cell it doesn't like, it passes over to the liver, and the liver takes it and breaks down those blood cells, the protein constituents, turns it into bile so you can digest fats. And fats help your immune system so nothing is wasted. Oh my God, it's beautiful. Now, the tough part is if the spleen's not functioning correctly because you have incorrect diet, or because you have toxic blood, the spleen's going to get clogged up, it's not going to work right. Or if the liver, the spleen is passing off to, if the liver isn't working correctly, again, you're going to have old red blood cells. Old red blood cells mean they can't hold the same amount of oxygen. So blood has to get thicker again. What happens to pressure when blood gets thick? It goes up. So now what we're seeing is healthy blood equals healthy life, because the blood carries the immune system, carries oxygen. Does that make more sense? Flow blood, or slow blood, thick blood, slows down and clumps the blood vessels together. Now this is beyond stupid. This is going to sound really, really dumb. Things that increase blood viscosity, this means thickens it. It thickens the blood. Blood pressure medications. Okay. Now, this is going to sound really crazy. Okay, what if we came up with something poisonous that damages the kidneys, that thickens blood pressure, but we want to sell it to the public? Now, initially, it's going to lower blood pressure. How about we call it a water pill? That sounds pretty innocuous, doesn't it? Okay, what a water pill is, it's poisonous to the kidneys. It allows you to urinate really a lot. So you lose electrolytes, you also lose magnesium, and that throws you into cardiac arrhythmias and a bunch of other stuff. But it thickens the blood because you're not losing cells, you're just losing the fluid. So blood pressure drugs actually thicken the blood. So if it thickens the blood, what do you think has to happen to the pressure eventually? It goes up. So how many people take 1, 2, 3, 4 different medications? All the time. Non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, Advil, Motrin, ibuprofen, those clump blood vessels together, they thicken it. Diet products. Did you know, well, as long as if your temperature, your body temperature is below 86 degrees, you can take, if your temperature is below 86 degrees, you can take diet products. You can use the pink stuff in your, well, you can't do it in Starbucks because the coffee is over 86 degrees. But you can probably put it on your tongue if you're below 86 degrees. Wait, what's the regular body temperature? 98, 98.6. Well, I was wrong. Okay, so you can't take diet products. This means that poisonous stuff that they put in the diet products, okay, the aspartame, if your body's heated over 86 degrees, which everybody is, it breaks down to formaldehyde, wood alcohol, cancer-causing agents, and that also thickens up the blood. Packaged products, they're devoid of enzymes. See, in order for something to be in a package, it's got to be unattractive to bacteria. So if it rots within a couple of days, it's good, you can eat it. Not after it's rotted, but so packaged products, they're devoid of enzymes. So if you have enzymes that aren't in the food, you can't eat it. Dehydration, again, there's only 3 people out of 40 in here that are drinking enough water. Now, so let's say that you're in the sick care system that we have, and you come up with thick blood. From what? I don't know. Dehydration, poor food choices, and you take an occasional poison called a pain reliever. Let's thin the blood with rat poison. Have you ever seen this in the store? Yeah, you have. Yeah, you have. You're behind the guy in the store and you see giant bruises everywhere. So you can go up and say, hey buddy, you want aspirin therapy or Coumadin? Okay, and this is the crazy stuff that you'll be lied to, because if you do have bruises everywhere, okay, I've heard this, that my patients say, yeah, my doctor says the blood vessels are coming up to the surface. Huh? Okay, I don't know what he's smoking, but you have a closed system. Okay, see, my blood is encased in either a vein or an artery. All the way from its production in the long bones, it gets into that arterial system. It's closed. If you see bruises everywhere, that means the blood vessels are weak. So if you have bruises on your system anywhere, it means you have weak blood vessels. This means increased kidney damage and increased stroke. That's foolish. You take anything that breaks blood vessels, you're going to die early. Okay, so that's just an ignorant approach. We're not going to do that anymore. So we understand medications, all medications slow or stop a metabolic process. All medications are poisonous. Anything that stops a metabolic process is dangerous to the body, so you require detox. Okay? Does that make sense? Good. Does that mean cholesterol drugs? Yes. Does that mean antacids? Yes, they even came out with a warning that antacids cause a loss of magnesium, which means that you're talking strokes, heart attacks, everything else. Does that, every medication, pain relievers, does that mean every medication can slow or stop a metabolic process? Yes or yes? So if you've ever taken a medication, we got to detox. This is the other ridiculous thing. Vaccines. Now in 1983, there was 10 vaccines given before the age of 6. Okay, now in 2010, there are about 38 vaccines given before the age of 6. Now what this is now cancer is now, if you look at cancer rates in children before, say, 1960, it's hard to find even a reference. It really is. Because kids just didn't die of cancer. Now, cancer rates, it's the leading cause of death from disease in kids today. Cancer. Now why? Why is that? Are these vaccines necessary? Are they tested? I don't know. Are they? Do you know? Did you know? Because when I get parents in here and I'll say, do you know how many vaccines your kids get? And they say, I don't know, 8 or 10. I said, nope, not today. You see, to follow a kid's vaccine schedule from birth through about 18, they're given 74 shots of 16 different viruses. Now, these aren't tested in multiple doses. They're not even tested in rats, pretty much. And what they are, they're injected into the bloodstream, which is totally abnormal for proteins, and it causes your body to have an over-response. This is why we're seeing a massive rise in brain tumors and lymphomas. Massive rise. God, I mean, how many times have you seen a TV commercial for St. Jude's Children's Center, or you see the little bald kid in there that we're supposed to contribute money to, or City of Hope, okay, chemotherapy centers, okay? It's not appropriate. It would upset me too. I'm totally with you on that one. Plus, you know, you got to figure, I'm voting for you. You get no vaccines, kid. Okay, so it's not appropriate for health. But when we look at this, okay, now here, you know, when I'm doing research, this billboard you gotta love. Who would you rather see live, the rat or the kid? Well, current healthcare standards is we're saving the rat. We're not testing it on rats, we're testing it on the kids. Again, I totally agree with you. Okay, now this is frustrating. This is off of the package insert from the H1N1 in 2009. Remember the panic? We tried to sell everybody it's a pandemic and all that other stuff. When we talked last week about how pandemics can actually happen, they never happened in 1918. It's just a fear tactic. This one here is off the package insert. Now it says animal reproductive studies have not been conducted. Oh wait, what was that thing I just said? Save the rat, protect the, or test the kid? Okay, animal reproduction. So that means we didn't even get pregnant rats and inject it into it. It's not known whether the vaccine can cause harm to the fetus when administered to a pregnant woman. Why isn't it known? We just never tested it. We don't know. Okay, or it can affect the reproductive capacity. It's never been evaluated to see if it causes cancer, or it's going to mutate or may impair fertility. Now this was in 2009. Now, did you know that this same H1N1 is in this year's flu shot? Did you know that? The same thing. It still has never been tested. Now, what's interesting, this National Coalition of Organized Women, they actually went in and looked at the number of pregnant women that got the shot and what happened to them. See, now it's 2011. We're a couple years behind. And with their statistics, they said there are about 3,587 stillbirths or miscarriages. So it wasn't tested in the lab. It was tested in the population, and about almost 4,000 kids died. Now, if you're into population control, this is good. It means apartments will be cheaper. I tend to like kids. I mean, they're fun. I got 2 of them. Okay. Now, this is a criminal. Now, they're not indicted for this, but what happens? Why would a fetus be ejected from a human being if they're given an inoculation? Well, first off, it has cancer-causing agents in there. It has foreign proteins in there. And it causes the body to reject things and to wall it off. See, cancer today in our population, it's not a disease. Cancer doesn't exist outside of the body. It's a protective mechanism, the body walling off foreign invaders, and it protects the body, and that's why some of the agents that we have to wipe out cancer are ridiculous. And since it's injected in the bloodstream, it's very hard for the immune system to attack cancer. There's a cancer control conference that's every year. This is the 40th year. It's on Labor Day weekend. I recommend you go. It's close. And you'll see natural cures for cancer all around the world. But what they do is they detox the body, they strengthen the immune system, and cancer is reversed. Every time. Every time. So now this one, you know, it's frustrating when you see that. I mean, last week we talked about flu shots and vaccinations. Just understand that they're not effective. They're not required to get into school. They've never been studied in large-term studies. It's a criminal act. This is another criminal act. Now, food studies. Now, when we talk next week about toxic food products, it's absolutely ridiculous. Next week, we're going to talk about the bologna sandwich that I had in 1968. Because did you know my bologna has a first name? Oh, S-C-A-S is Oscar Mayer. Oh, dude, advertising works. Okay, but that animal product, okay, back in 1960s, okay, it didn't have hormones, it didn't have antibiotics, it didn't have, you know, all the toxic products. If you put mayonnaise on it, it didn't have genetically modified canola oil. It was made out of palm oil. The wheat didn't have genetically modified wheat in there, okay? It was not a healthy sandwich, okay, even though my mom, God bless her, she made me them, okay? But today's product is radically toxic. It has cancer-causing agents, and it's poisonous. And we can't feed it to the kids. You know, if you go in and get potato chips, and the kid gives a potato chip to the dog, what's the parent going to say? Don't give it to the dog, it's going to kill the dog. Okay, those potato chips are for you. So when we look at this, again, population control is okay. Vaccines and brain development. Russell Blaylock, brilliant guy. Okay, this thing here, you gotta understand that there's neurotoxins inside of the vaccines. He also wrote a book, Neurotoxins, inside of aspartame or sweeteners, inside of preservatives. Neurotoxin. Neuro means nerve, toxic means poison. This means it's poison stuff to the brain. Poison stuff to the brain, that means immune system. This one here, MSG, aspartame, and sudden cardiac death. Now, would anyone in here ever consciously buy something that contains MSG? No? Why? Because it causes cancer, causes sudden death. It's very, very dangerous, right? We're educated on that. Well, luckily, the Fraud and Deception Association, who works for the corporations, wait, what does FDA stand for again? Oh, Food and Drug Administration. Well, they are now employed. Our government agency is now working for the corporations because this is 40 different names that you can call MSG legally. So when you go in there and get that soy protein isolate on the health bar, okay, understand that it could have a neurotoxins in it. If it says natural flavoring, it could have neurotoxins in it. If it doesn't say 100% organic, okay, you can't get it. You don't feed it to kids. Go on, tell me. It's too expensive. Good. Do you know how much chemotherapy is? Okay? I'm sorry. It's too hard to buy this stuff. Okay, good. What kind of poison do you want to feed the kids? No. The line is drawn here. Captain Picard was right. We stop this stuff right now. Okay? We don't do this. If this is in your cupboard, you throw it away. You don't give it to poor people. Unless you're Scrooge. And then here, well, he said, you know, let's decrease the surplus population, you know. So here, and then there's toxic products here too as well. I mean, this thing, you got to understand that this is poisonous stuff. It's not good for you. Russell Blaylock, excitotoxins, the taste that kills. This is what's wrapped around a chicken nugget. This is what the chicken nugget is dipped into. This is why you can take a sick animal, freeze it, preserve it, boil it in some type of oil, dip it in there, and when it hits your mouth, it explodes in flavor. You just think, oh my gosh, this nugget is a great, because it's an excitotoxin. It excites the pleasure centers of your brain. It's the same thing as kissing your girlfriend or something. You get that same like, oh God, this feels so wonderful. Yeah, it's a chicken nugget, okay, but it's destroying your brain. The kissing the girlfriend's okay. These are the names that you have on there. They're dangerous stuff that you can have it. Now, I taught human dissection for 8 years. I cut up about 500 people. They were all dead. Okay, but I mean, I've seen colons, and a colon is supposed to be about the size of your wrist, maybe a little smaller, and it's beautiful. This is where a lot of bacteria are. This is where 90% of the body's water absorption is. It's loaded with bacteria, and the bacteria help produce vitamin K for blood clotting. It's incredible. Now this is the neat part. This is a healthy colon. This is a really sick colon. So now, next to the colon, where the small intestine dumps in there, there's a little tiny lymph organ. Now this lymph organ is brilliant. Okay, because if you got loaded bacteria, you want to keep them in check. And it's called the appendix. Now, if the appendix inflames, it means it's working. In this country, we rip out most appendixes. Now, if the appendix has been removed, knowing that it's lymph tissue, and now that you have a 60% increased risk of colon cancer because you removed the lymph tissue, that's a mental giant there. Do they tell you that you absolutely have to take soluble fiber or vegetable juice to keep the arteries in the colon healthy? Do they? No. If you've had your gallbladder ripped out, do they tell you that you're going to have a problem with fat metabolism and increased cancer risk? So you have to absolutely increase your risk, your intake of healthy saturated fats. Do they tell you that? No. Do they tell you that have you ever heard of antidepressants? Okay. The craziness of this is we're going to talk about it in December, but the drugs that they give, they're called has anyone ever heard of an antidepressant? Okay, what do they build as? SSRIs? Okay, they're billed as a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. The problem is when you look at the clinical pharmacology or how the drug actually works, it says mechanism of action is unknown. I really don't know how this works, but it should be okay. Okay, now the problem is, okay, serotonin is like a feel-good hormone. Did your doctor tell you that anyone that's depressed or has anxiety, that 90% of the body serotonin is produced in the gut? 90%. This means that if that gut isn't functioning right, the brain doesn't function right. So how many psychiatrists out there are skilled with soluble fiber or gut health or healthy probiotics or healthy enzymes to help you digest nutrients? You know, it's just a backward system. That's dangerous. Hippocrates was right. Death begins in the colon. It really does. So these are the toxins that your body is exposed to. Prescription drugs. Does that mean some of them or all of them? All of them. Okay, dental fillings. I mean, up until a few years ago, you couldn't find a dentist to remove them. Now they're all over the place. Pesticides. This means everything that you get that's not organic is loaded with estrogens. Are there estrogen-based cancers in our society today? Huge, yeah, so it's got to be organic. Processed foods, that's if we make it unattractive to bacteria, it's unattractive to our bodies. Synthetic foods, vaccinations, predatory. Now vaccinations, are they required to get into school? I'm sorry, are they required to get into school? No. I want to hear no, they're not, okay? In California, there's multiple exemptions, medical, religious, or personal beliefs. So you could say no, foreign viral proteins injected in the bloodstream is stupid and unscientific. Great, that's my personal belief. Predatory fish, environmental stimulus. This thing here is ridiculous. I used to print up this, potentially inappropriate medications for the elderly. Okay, you in the back row, what's this on the bottom line? No, I know you can't read it, okay? But just know that this is a huge list that's maybe inappropriate for seniors. What makes it appropriate for a teenager? What makes it appropriate for somebody who's a young kid like me? okay, in only a 51-year-old body. Okay, I mean, you got to figure there's antidepressants, muscle relaxants, antacids, every kind of class of drug you could possibly imagine. But every medication slows or stops a metabolic process. It slows or stops a metabolic process, increases your risk of cancer and disease. That is a foolish approach. That's not healthcare. We're not going to do that anymore. This one here, you may get somebody, because I know there's one person here that's still stuck in that medical model. Well, what about asthma? You can die with it. Yeah, you're right. 5,000 people a year die from asthma. However, 4,000 of the 5,000 die from the drugs used to treat asthma. Now, we have are you aware of this? And this is right here. It's out of the Annals of Internal Medicine. This is not stuff made up. Medical doctors are aware of this. Now in my office, we have a 100% success rate treating asthma. I mean, we adjust them, we find the problem, fix it, and they don't have it anymore. They're done. They're over it. This guy here, chronic lung problems. That's his x-ray. By gosh, that's the cardiac and respiratory center located at the base of his brain. Do me a favor, sit up nice and straight. Just sit up nice and straight where you are. Now this guy, slide your body off to the side just a little bit and take a deep breath. Now go back to the middle and take a deep breath. Isn't that weird? If your body's off to the side, it's hard to breathe. So he had chronic lung problems. Yeah, he couldn't expand his lungs. The rib cages wasn't working right. Within 90 days, no drugs, no problem, normal lung functioned. You're supposed to say, wow, isn't that reversal of arthritis? I'll bet that guy doesn't need any non-steroidal anti-inflammatories. You're right, he didn't need them in the first place. He needed a real doctor to look at him, appreciate that his body is intelligent, get the normal physiology to function, and then get him off the toxins. This right here is one of the best cleanses I have ever seen. It's absolutely hard to do. Okay, now me and my son tried it first. What it is understand that your body's been exposed to toxins and heavy metal poisoning. Clay is fantastic. In fact, there's a book over here called The Clay Cure. Okay, The Clay Cure, excellent one. But what this does is clay acts really similar to charcoal, where it actually binds to heavy metals and flushes it out. Now this is very, very intense, and this is just one method. One of the main ways to cleanse your body is to not eat for a little bit. Okay, fasting. Again, it's fantastic. If you have heavy metal exposure, this is outrageously good. First off, the drink that is recommended with this style of cleanse, and there's tons of cleanses out there. It's bentonite clay, 3 tablespoons, 12 ounces of water, and then the tough part is you use this phylum husk. Now this stuff explodes when it hits water. It absorbs water, it can't be dissolved. So you put a tablespoon of that in there, shake it up, and drink it quickly. If you don't drink it quickly, it turns into oatmeal. How would you like to drink oatmeal? I know, it's disgusting. It's worse than that because it's flavorless oatmeal. Now, you do this about 5 times a day. So think of this. So you're getting this this thing that's going to bind to heavy metals, and it's bound into the phylum husk, and it flushes out your system. And then you add with it, well, chlorella. This is actually one of the best ones is veirons.com. Great cleanse. I modified it a little bit because of what it's hard to get. You need to get a practitioner that sells this stuff. Chlorella tablets, wheat germ oil, vitamin C, beet plant juice, and probiotics. So this means you take a package of pills 5 times a day. So you're inundating your body with things, chlorella and the clay, that's going to bind to the heavy metals and flush out of your system. You're allowing your digestive tract time off. So within 3 days, you're eliminating the mucosal lining off of the intestinal tract. This means you're getting rid of that intestinal lining. So this means you're cleaning your entire structure. And then at the end of doing this, you've got to start off with a colonic. It'd be ideal if you did a colonic during the day. And what a colonic is they shove a tube up, they flush out your system with water, and they vacuum it out so you actually clean the colon. Now, I've been recommending colonics for a lot of years. About 3 years ago I tried it, and it's about as fun as you can imagine. It's like flossing. I don't really enjoy it, but you got to do it. Okay, you got to do it. If you want a healthy body, you got to do it.
So make you close your eyes?
It doesn't help. They don't put the tube in the eyes. Okay, so this here, when you look at it, you got it because your body's dumping toxins. Okay, toxins are going to be bound to the clay. They're going to be secreted from the liver. They're going to be secreted from the pancreas. They're going to be getting out of your system. So you want that pathway where those toxins are going to land clean. 90% of the body's water absorption takes place in the colon. So you want that colon clean so it flushes it out. So that's vital. And you do this, cleansing drinks, supplements, cleansing drinks, supplements, cleansing drinks, supplements. Can you imagine 8 days of this? I know. Again, I'm so with you. Okay, but you got to do it a couple times a year. There's nothing like it. And then after this, so you've cleaned out your system, okay? Hopefully at the end you've done a liver flush, which is absolutely bizarre, where you're going to take a cup of olive oil, and it's got to be organic cold press, and a cup of grapefruit juice, and you down it. Okay, then you go to sleep. And what that does, that causes the gallbladder to contract, the liver to contract, and you flush it out of your system. So after you've gone through 8 days of that, this is your next meal. It's got to be raw, fresh, organic. Why? Because your body is so cleaned and so starved of nutrients that it's going to absorb it right away. So you don't want to go out and say, far out, now I've cleaned my body, I'm going to get a Carl's Jr. and a beer. No, you're not going to do that. Why? Because the Carl's Jr. has antibiotics, hormones, pesticides, and MSG. Okay? You're going to want to get raw, healthy, organic. There's living enzymes in this material here. And most everybody on this planet is enzyme deficient. So this is how you finish it. There's another way to clean your body, and this is EDTA. And this was developed by the Germans. This is if you've had incredible industrial exposure. Now the Germans, they were brilliant. They're working with all these toxic materials, and they had a very limited manpower source. So they developed this in order to keep their guys working on the line. Incredible, but it'll get rid of mercury, lead, aluminum, cadmium. They're doing this a lot because, understand, where do most cancers come from? Deficiency or toxicity. Okay, so and wait a second. Cancers come from deficiency or toxicity. How do we treat it? Chemotherapy and radiation. Toxicity and poison. Okay, burn it. Okay, or you might cut it out. So what happens to most cancers? And in fact, we know this. We know that cancer comes back. So what they did is, in order to make the statistics look better, we stopped it at 5 years. So if you haven't had a reoccurrence in 5 years, you're cured of cancer. How many? Raise your hand if you know someone that had cancer. Keep your hand up if you know that cancer came back. Okay, good. 3/4 of the hands are still up. Okay. Okay, you understand that? You've got to clean the body. If you've gone through this chemotherapy and radiation, you've got to clean the body right now. Oral chelation is one of the best too. This means everything you put in your body, it can be healthy, and it can add to your life, and it can bind to those heavy metals and clean your body. Colon cleanse, liver cleanse, it's fantastic. You should have bowel movements 2 to 3 times a day. This is our future. The problem is, you've heard this on commercials so many times. Ask your doctor if this is right for you. He doesn't know. He just doesn't know. He's not playing with the full deck. He doesn't understand anatomy or physiology or something. I don't know what world a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory and a blood pressure drug and a vaccination is considered health. None of those therapies are appropriate. They're not. They're not going to add to your life. This gal here, okay, almost 60 years old, 43-degree scoliosis. Now, if you have a scoliosis like this, do you have appropriate bowel function? No, the nerves that supply the intestinal tract come out of there. So she had bad bowel function. So what do you get with bad bowel function? Not enough serotonin. So what was she taking? Antidepressants. So if she's taking antidepressants, does that help her blood or slow her blood down? Slows her blood down. Okay, she was also taking blood pressure drugs. So she's also taking a cholesterol-lowering drug because her body's trying to produce this. I mean, we're talking 9 medications. Now, it took us about 2 months to get her off of all the drugs. But I mean, look at that, 14% reduction of scoliosis in a 58-year-old. Can scoliosis be reduced? Yes or yes? Yeah. I mean, it's phenomenal. We got to start appreciating the human body and approaching healthcare with wisdom, that the body's smart. Enzymes, vital. Now, enzymes, when we talked about last week, and we're going to talk more about it next week on healthy food so your body can break it down. This is something that you're going to have to supplement with if you want to be healthy. Vitamins, minerals, you have to supplement with it. This is what your body requires for detoxing. You need healthy nerve supply, regular exercise, which also detoxes. No, it's not that bad. You know, it can be easy and fun. You'll like the exercise. Proper nutrition. This means that God makes it, you eat it. Raw, healthy, organic, 80% of it. Sufficient rest, and prayer and meditation. We're going to have a whole class on prayer and meditation, how to get in that meditative state so your body can regenerate tissue. Okay, at the end of December. It's vital. Now, obviously, you got to start off with getting your nerve supply checked. At our office, it's generally expensive. At this time of the year, it's only $25. Okay, and what you get is you get a posture analysis, consultation, and a drug search. And the drug search includes not just drugs that you may be taking, but also nutritional analysis. So we can find out if your body has healthy enzymes or is devoid of enzymes. We also give you an exam. If I feel you need x-rays, we do digital x-rays. So it's very, very low dose, but it also helps us find problems. A report on the x-ray so I can say, yes, this is how you need to take diet changes, nutrition changes, physical changes, and if I see it, you even need an adjustment. Does that make sense? And the reason we do it at this time of the year, because, I mean, we're in Southern California. Everybody comes here. And so, I mean, last year we had a guy came out from Germany who had diabetes. He doesn't have diabetes anymore. I know. Isn't that cool? I know. I mean, here's a young guy. He's only like 40 and he had 2 kids and his feet were going numb. You know, we're all part of the same family. Okay, just the fact that you folks are here means that you're thinking about health and you're not getting the right answers. Okay, so I really honor you. Thank you for making it here. Thank you very much.